To understand what I'm about to tell you, you need to do something first. You need to believe in the impossible. Can you do that?
What do you desire that you can't have?
Now you should at least give a brother a moment to say something heroically clever.
You have failed this city.
So I have this thing with rolls.
Just the end of the world.
There's about a dozen ways that I could stop you right now. But I don't think I have to.
You're the boy from the circus.
I started up a security firm.
Finally, a superhero team I can actually get behind.
In the future, my friends may not be heroes, but if we succeed, they will be remembered as legends.
Welcome to the DC TV report for the week ending Saturday, April 4th, 2020. I'm Little Eddie O'Hare, aspiring professional fanboy.
And I'm Sara, academic by day, writer by night.
We're here to bring you recaps, news, and commentary for all live-action television shows based on DC Comics.
And friends, we have a movie for you today.
Yes, no new episodes, and we're going to the movies for the retro pick today. So, I'm excited. This is a movie that's very near and dear to my heart. One of those things kind of had memorized since I was like 3 or 4 years old.
Well, and this is a movie that I saw a lot when I was a kid and hadn't seen as an adult, and it was fantastic. So I'm very excited to talk about it.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, so our retro pick is Superman the movie, which we're not going to talk about just yet. But do want to get some business out of the way. But by the way, thank you for listening. Really thanks to listeners. We did have some interactions on Twitter this week with some of our friends, and we enjoy that. Throwing out some suggestions for what our retro picks are going to be for the next couple weeks, because we've got at least 2 more weeks of no new episodes. But we're gonna get to that in the news and later on. And just if you're listening to us on an app that allows you to rate and review us, please do that, because that helps people find us. Also, if you want to be extra helpful, we are part of Wicked Theory Studios, which has a patreon.com/Wicked Theory. And for as little as $1 a month, you can just help us with our overhead. And there's a bonus podcast there called Ed Bonds with Bill, where I watch James Bond movies with our executive producer, Bill Sweeney. Our latest episode was Spectre, the 4th Daniel Craig James Bond adventure. Sarah, do you remember Spectre?
I am sure I watched it. Is that the Javier Bardem?
No, that's Skyfall. No, this is the one with Christoph Waltz and Léa Seydoux. It's where they try to bring back Blofeld, and spoiler, it turns out it's James Bond's adoptive brother.
Okay, I do kind of remember that. So
Yes.
I was thinking the other night, I need to make a request for this podcast because my favorite James Bond movie is the Mike Snow music video for Genghis Khan. I love it so much. I watch it once a week. It is my favorite James Bond inspired piece of pop culture. So if y'all could get on that would be great. It seems to me that in a time when we have a lot more downtime and alone time and maybe opportunities where we're looking to escape our loved ones, if we're in homes with them, hey, Ed has another podcast. So, check it out.
Yeah.
Bond it.
Yeah. Ed Bonds with Bill. One of us enjoys it. That's not true. Oh,
wait, is it not true that only one of you? Is it true that none of you enjoy it, or both?
No.
of you enjoy
No. No, Bill puts up a front, but I know he gets a kick out of it. And we're only doing it once a month now, until November when No Time to Die comes out. So, Yeah, and yeah, Sarah, um what news going on with you this week?
Uh, well, today is my birthday.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you. And all my classes moved online, and so I got to see my students for the first time since our unexpected 2-week break, and that was really nice to connect. And so we're all getting used to kind of a new way of interacting and sharing material. So it's been an interesting week. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I've been okay. I've been out sick the last 2 days, just because I have a cough that I can't. um, that was just embarrassing. Nothing more than that.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
I just like I really miss sports bars. I just not even good ones. Like, I'd be really happy now just being able to go to a Buffalo Wild Wings and watch a hockey game in the corner. I don't know.
Well, my
Um
condolences to you, sports people. A friend of the pod and friend of my heart, Tanya Melendez, was watching just old baseball games from the '90s when all the players looked like sitcom dads. It- and that's just what sports people are doing now? Question mark?
Yeah, pretty much. ESPN's running like old basketball games from 10 years ago, or rerunning WrestleMania 33.
We're all getting by. No judgment for whatever anybody does to get through it these days. It's good.
So
It's good.
yeah. Well, we're still gonna have the NFL draft, and that's what's important. That's still happening.
Isn't that a thing that happens with people together?
Well, no, they're gonna do it virtually, but it's still gonna happen.
Okay.
So because the talent evaluators and all that, that's all done. That can all still be done over the phone. Same with like NFL free agency. We could still sign multi-million-dollar deals over the phone. So thank God we now know that Tom Brady is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. These are the things that matter in life. I mean, we wouldn't know where Philip Rivers was going to end up, and it's not as an LA Charger, it's as an Indianapolis Colt. Um, there's some kind of movement that's going around. Since people can't play, we could talk about where they're going to play eventually, maybe sometime.
I'm frozen like a lizard on the wall in like Florida. Like, you can't see me, right? Because I want no part of this.
All right. You want to move on to the news, Sarah?
Yes, please.
All right, let's do some news for shows.
Okay, let's do that. So first, we have some return dates for the CW shows. The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow are expected back on Tuesday, April 22nd, and then Batwoman and Supergirl will return on Sunday, April 26th. So that is the plan. We'll have toward the end of the month some fresh CW shows, and I guess they'll presumably run as long as they have new episodes to run, and then that'll be that for a while. And I say for a while because of course the new season premiere dates are really up in the air, because in the summer is when they start filming for the fall. Well, this summer, if they're able to film, hopefully they'll be finishing up the current season. So will they be able to pivot to the new season? Will there be another shutdown in the fall? The Digital Spy article talking about this said that there is a lot of concern that we're going to see another shutdown of everything in the fall, if things resurge. So don't know when those new seasons will come. There's a lot of talk about maybe January. Maybe we go to a January to December TV schedule. Maybe TV schedules are a thing of the past. Maybe everything is going to change. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Calm down.
Everybody spirals into existential despair. It's fine.
It's gonna be fine.
And when are we gonna see new shows though? When?
We're gonna see them soon. I guarantee. 6 months from now, we're all gonna be laughing about this.
Okay.
We're all going to be joking and going on. Just remember that time we were tapping elbows? That was stupid.
I sincerely hope that is true.
All right, what's up next?
Okay, it gets worse. The Flash. Logan Williams, who played Child Barry in flashbacks, died this week at the age of 16.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
tragic.
yeah. The article did not have a cause of death at the time that it was written, but yeah, they had pictures of him on set with Grant Gustin, and he was a lot young. I mean, he looked like he was like 10 at the time, so he was a cute kid. I remember those episodes. They were good parts of the Flash lore. So very tragic news there.
Yeah, I remember that was. Yeah, I think he was pretty much in the first 2 seasons. But that's so sad.
Okay, everything is less dire from here on out. Okay,
good.
Okay, so let's start with this. Legends of Tomorrow. It's not even news. It's just that CBR wrote an impassioned plea this week to give them Swamp Thing.
I mean, we kind of did that, right? Is there an episode?
Well, the summer camp episode, he was definitely name checked.
Yes. Swamp Thing, I think was the.
Yes, it was. So, if there is, of course, Legends is where Swamp Thing should end up. I now need this to happen, and they tried to make it happen in the crossover, the Crisis crossover, and that didn't work. So they still got the costume someplace in the DC Universe archives, right? Just bust it out, and
Yeah. I mean, I really just to see Matt Ryan interact with Swamp Thing would be amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't care what show it's on. Can we please make this happen?
Swampy and Johnny.
Yeah,
like that's the spinoff. Speaking of spinoffs, Superman and Lois. We have some casting news. Dylan Walsh has been cast as Sam Lane. You would remember Dylan Walsh as the Nip Tuck star who is not what's his name, but the other one. This has been Hollywood news with Sara.
Yeah.
Julian McMahon, is that? No. He was Dr. Doom in the bad. You know what? We're going to just push through it.
All right.
Actually, both the leads on Nip Tuck now are going to be involved in the DC universe. So there you go. Not the streamer, but the,
Curious, what do you think is the age difference between him and Elizabeth Tulloch?
Probably not. Well, if he had her as a young man, I could see that would work, because she's got to be late 30s.
Yeah,
and he would have been late 30s in Nip Tuck, and that was at least
15 years ago.
Because I did my dissertation research on it, and that was 2005-ish. So 15 years ago. So probably they're a little closer than they. That's a good question. But he's a fun actor. He's an interesting actor. So I'm actually really excited about this. That's going to be a very cool energy. He was the antagonist in the cruelly canceled Whiskey Cavalier, which I am the only person in America who enjoyed. So I'm glad he's working again.
Yeah. And General Lane, it's always a fun dynamic, because he's a high level army general who doesn't trust Superman, which makes for some interesting conflicts between him and his daughter. So I think that's a great dynamic to have on this show.
Yes. I mean, understanding what we just came off of watching, how do you not trust Superman? That hurts me, but yeah, I cannot wait. So, next show, Titans. Ed, are you ready?
Yeah, what's up?
Barbara Gordon is coming to season 3.
Oh, this is great. This is perfect. Like right now in Titans, this is great.
Interestingly, it's not an official kind of announcement from the show, but Titans director and cinematographer Boris Majowski was on the, stay with me now, Canadian Society of Cinematographers live stream Q&A this week. And near the end of the Q&A, he teased a reveal about the new season, which is a new character who's going to be in the premiere. And he said that a fan of the show had already guessed online that it would be Barbara, and he confirmed that that was correct. So,
wow.
Yeah. Now we don't know what kind of Barbara. Is she going to be Oracle? Is she going to be, is she going to be like a Dick Grayson love interest? I feel like if it's a lady on the show, she's a Dick Grayson love interest. That seems to be how it works.
Yes. Yeah. I think I would prefer to see her as Oracle rather than Batgirl. But also I think, because there's always been kind of this love triangle where Teen Titans fans want to see Dick end up with Starfire, and Batman fans want to see Dick end up with Barbara. So you can have an interesting I'd like to see that love triangle play out in a series. But again, we don't know if this is gonna be a one-off guest star, or if she's going to be recurring for the season.
Correct. So. Although it seems to me that Titans has been pretty good about not just using people one and done for the most part. Other than Eve in season 2, who I thought we needed more of. Anyway, whatever. And then some slightly, I don't want to say it's bad news, but it's news that I personally didn't want to hear. Which is that Majowski went on to say in season 3, things are going to go back to being seedy and dark in every way. It should have, in a good way, many resemblances to the first season in terms of that. And then he said it has some cool emotional stuff from the second season. So as someone who preferred the second season, that's not great.
Yeah. I mean, he's a cinematographer. What the hell does he know?
That's right. Other than tone and composition and everything.
Sarah, I'm trying to lift out of this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, and maybe they learn. I mean, seedy and dark doesn't have to be bad. I guess.
No.
We just watched the Christopher Reeve Superman, so obviously I'm in a let's not do seedy and dark place. But maybe they learned some things with season 2, which I thought was outstanding in a lot of ways, and hopefully, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. All right. Yeah. All right. So that's Titans. Moving on to Stargirl.
Stargirl music.
We're gonna get some elder statesmen, sort of. Jay Garrick and Alan Scott, aka Flash and Green Lantern, will appear on Stargirl in like photos in the background.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So yeah. So so these are founding members of the Justice Society. So if you're gonna have the Justice Society, you have to have the Golden Age Green Lantern and Flash. In fact, you talk about the Trinity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. The Justice Society kind of has its own Trinity, which is the Jay Garrick Flash, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, and Ted Grant Wildcat. And I think there's a version of Wildcat that's going to be on this show too, that we've already seen photos of. So I mean, if it's going to be a passing reference, maybe we get to meet them if they go back in time or something, or maybe that's something they're saving for season 2. But I mean, and since we're so sorry for any kind of Green Lantern content. So even if it's this version, it shows that their heart's in the right place, and I wouldn't expect Jeff Johns to do this without some kind of reference to those characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. That feels like a show that's going to land at the right time where there isn't going to be a lot of fresh content. So hopefully it'll get a lot of eyes.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. So next we have an update on Why
the
Last
music.
Man. Not an update necessarily, but Imogen Poots, who is one of the stars, says she was ready to film. She had landed on the West Coast with 5 months of belongings in her suitcase to start filming this cursed, eternally delayed adaptation of the beloved comic book. And what happened? Global pandemic. So they were ready to go, and the cast was assembled from all the continents to go. And then this happened. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's disappointing. That's disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least they were, at that point, so hopefully they can get back up to speed pretty quickly. I also hope that poor woman got to go back home, if that's what she wanted to do.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe she's stuck in some crappy apartment that she rented for, I don't know. Okay, finally, this week, Watchmen news. The cast of Watchmen put out the most amazing PSA on washing your hands that I have seen since all of this started. They did it in character. They all did it from their own isolation lockup spots. It's funny. It's effective. Regina King just counts. And it's the most threatening and persuasive thing you've ever seen. It is my favorite celebrity offering of anything that's happened.
Yes, it's called Watchmen.
And Ed, I'm going to be so bold as to say we're going to share that from our account? ?
Oh yeah,
on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah.
Because people need to see this. It's really great.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any Gene Smart content, I'm there for. So yeah, that is what I've got for the news this week.
All right, so I guess now it's time for our retro pick. Sarah, are you ready?
Yes, please.
All right, so now we're going to talk about Superman, the movie. Jor-El sent his son Kal-El to Earth in a rocket ship just in time to escape the destruction of Krypton. Jonathan and Martha Kent raised Clark as their own in Smallville and taught him not to show off his powers. After 12 years of training in the Fortress of Solitude, mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent began working at the Daily Planet in Metropolis, and Superman revealed himself to the world by rescuing Lois Lane. Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mind of our time, hatched a scheme to defeat Superman and cause the California coast to fall into the ocean. Last-minute reveal: now that the world was safe, Superman flew into space, past the camera, and gave us a wink.
This was so much better than I remembered. I mean, as to experience material as an adult that you watched a lot as a child but didn't really, I was so delighted at how I smiled all the way through this, all the way through it. It was so good. How did it treat you?
Yeah, I thought the same. It's funny, we talked. I originally watched this on DC Universe earlier in the week, and realized that to my horror, it was the theatrical cut. And I remember there was a really, really good special edition director's cut that came out around 2000 that I have on DVD that includes a legendary commentary track by director Richard Donner and creative consultant Tom Mankiewicz. And I immediately swung into action to make sure that Sarah got a copy of that special edition.
So I opened my front door to see Amazon package on my porch, and I'm like, fiddle-dee-dee, what did I... And it was the Blu-ray, the special edition. Thank you again, Ed. And it comes with the 3.5-hour TV version, which we're for sure going to check out as our home confinement stretches on.
Oh, there you go. But yeah. And I mean, this particular rewatch, I mean, this movie, I just feel like it's eternal. Like it's an evergreen. It's something that was made in 1978 and I think still holds up today. And can tangle with any of the good stuff that Marvel puts out today. I think this is right up there with it. And Really the sense that Richard Donner, his sort of mantra when making this movie to the crew, he wanted to push a term called verisimilitude, which is just basically like truth and honesty, which is something that even though we're doing something that's based on a comic book, um, to everyone else who's making it and performing in it, it is real. It is something that's sincere, and I think you feel all of that where there's nothing about this is tongue in cheek, and it's something where fantastical things are happening, but it's the norm for these people, and they are reacting to it with all of their humanity. And I think that still really shines, and I think that's what really holds up today, and it's not just something that's a comic book. It really is feels like a piece of Americana.
It is. It's earnest. It's just so earnest in the most heartwarming and I think necessary way. I watching this, I now understand a lot of the reactions to the Henry Cavill Superman
Hmm.
movie. I mean, I understood it at the time, but when you hold those two things up side by side, those are different characters almost,
Yes.
right? Like I hear Uncle Jay getting fired up. I hear it in the background. I know. I know. But
Well,
it's just night and day. I mean, literally night and day. It's sunshine and it's darkness. It's the color of his suit is so shocking, even that it's so bright and optimistic, and the cape flows. I mean, even the way they've structured what Superman wears in the 2000s is so different and so rigid and so dark and muddy. It's fascinating to me how that
mhm.
has changed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah, but that definitely generally. Let's dive a little deeper um into the show. So did you see? I mean, it's. Did you see kind of like the three act structure that goes on here, or just the three completely different worlds that we see in this movie, with Krypton, Smallville, and Metropolis?
Okay, so what we have is Logan's Run, and then we have a shockingly hilly Kansas. That is not Kansas. When they pan across those enormous plateaus, I was like, "What? That's not Kansas. Kansas is flat." Yes, and then, uh, yeah, Metropolis. So definitely
Yeah.
yes. So can I just say, I had a moment of in the opening credits, Mario Puzo, like the Godfather. Oh, Marlon Brando. That was my exact
Well,
mental.
so do you want me to give you some of the lowdown on how this movie got made?
100%.
Uh, so this movie is produced by two guys called the Salkinds. I believe it's father and son, Alexander and Ilya Salkinds, who were producers, who made their bones doing two movies of the Three Musketeers in the 1970s. Um, and showed interest to Warner Brothers owned DC Comics at the time, but really had no interest in developing them. And the Salkin said, "Hey, we want to do Superman," and they made a deal to do what's called a negative pickup, which is basically like you have a budget, you could do whatever you want, you just need to deliver the picture at this time, and for this amount of money, and we'll distribute it, and you're responsible for anything that's over budget. So the Salkinds pretty much had carte blanche, and they decided to do the way they would the way they would raise money for this movie is just getting high profile people, whether or not they actually knew anything about Superman at all. So initially they did that by hiring Mario Puzo to write the screenplay. Um,
Because why not take
yeah,
the legendary writer of The Godfather and
yeah, and he wrote like a massive, and it was originally the first two movies combined because that's what they'd done with Three Musketeers. They did they shot two movies at once, and they did the same thing with Superman 1 and 2 were shot together.
Well, and it just blows my mind that we see General Zod at all in the opening minutes and then not again. It's
yeah.
I hadn't seen this since I was a child, and so putting it together, I was like, wait a second. They introduce these characters, they put them into a record album, and they toss them into space, and then we don't see them again in this movie. Amazing.
Yeah, and and I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, so Mario Puzo is writes this enormous screenplay that is reportedly very campy, and and they hire Marlon Brando to play Jor-El and Gene Hackman to play Lex Luthor, and that was the marketing strategy. We've got the guy who wrote The Godfather, and then Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman, and they get top billing in this movie. Christopher Reeve is third billing after the title, but Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman are the headliners. And again, Christopher Reeve was an unknown, and I think it went through another couple of writers. They had David and Leslie Newman and Robert Benton, who wrote David Newman and Robert Benton wrote Bonnie and Clyde, but they also happened to write Superman the Musical, which it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Sarah, have you ever heard of this artifact from the mid 1960s?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. It's an atrocious Broadway musical. That there was there's a TV special of it from like 75 that is just, oh my god. But yeah, so but they knew Superman, so they were doing cleanup on this script and probably made it even more campier. And then finally they had Guy Hamilton, who'd done a bunch of James Bond movies like Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die. And they figured out that they were going to shoot in London, and Guy Hamilton, who's an English director, had become a tax exile and couldn't be in England for more than 30 days, so he had to drop out. And so the next director that came on, basically, after Guy Hamilton dropped out, the next big movie that got released was The Omen, which is directed by Richard Donner. And that brought his attention to the producers, and Richard Donner got hold of the project, read that script, thought it was terrible, and realized that like you have these two Europeans who are making a mockery out of this apple pie, this important piece of American culture. So he brought in a writer named Tom Mankiewicz, who's credited as a creative consultant, and that was just basically after a fight between the Salkinds and Donner with the Writers Guild, and even though he pretty much wrote the screenplay for this, and they're the ones who decided to make it really earnest and really push the romantic elements of the story. And then from there it really became what it was. And unfortunately, after Superman, at a certain point, I think they shot about 70% of Superman 2, and the cost overruns were getting too much. That's like, okay, let's just finish the first one and get it out. And then after it became a big hit, the Salkinds fired Richard Donner and brought in Richard Lester to direct the rest of Superman 2. Which is why you have a Richard Donner cut of that came out about 10 years ago. But yeah, a lot of what you're talking about, that earnestness, that all comes from Richard Donner, and Tom Mankiewicz, and in terms of the ending, the reason that Zod and Ursa and Nan show up in the beginning is because originally this was going to be the end of Superman 1. He was not going to turn back the world. Lois Lane was not supposed to die at the end of the movie.
Oh, for a second I thought you were going to tell me Lois Lane wasn't supposed to survive, and I was going to be
No,
like, "Oh,
no.
that is dark."
No. It was funny because I was listening to the commentary track and they were talking about this, and Mankiewicz is trying to figure out, like, what did we do? And what he basically remembered was that Superman saves Lois, is able to pull the car out, and she survives. And he pulls her out, and she's alive, and she says, "Flippia for who takes the car back to Hertz." And but when he gets rid of the missile, when he's able to push away the missile and throws it out into space, that's what breaks the Phantom Zone, and Superman 1 ends with Come See Superman 2, where he fights the 3 supervillains.
Sure.
And the turning the world back was actually going to be at the end of Superman 2, which is he turns the world back so that she forgets that he's Superman. That's the basic overview of how this movie got made. And I've been talking for way too long.
Well, and I also I got a little bit of the Superman movie background in my living room last night from Jason, but it was peppered with, how Christopher Reeve worked out before filming started. He did a lot of military press, and he was 175 pounds when they cast him, and he promised that he'd bulk up to. So I also heard a lot about the physical, and I use some of that in my training when I'm doing so. If anybody has questions about the Superman workout, let me know, and I will run them past my husband. So
yeah, and he was trained by David Prowse, who's the physical version of Darth Vader.
Do you mean literally and not just figuratively?
Yeah, the guy in the suit, the guy in the Darth Vader suit in Star Wars is David
I thought
Prowse.
You were just like he embodies a Darth Vader quality, but no, he actually is Darth Vader. Okay.
Yes. So let's talk about some of this cast. Let's go down. So Sarah, what did you think of 1978 Marlon Brando with a spit curl?
He talked a lot. Like, let Kal-El's mother say goodbye to him too. Dang. You're my son, and I will be your son, and you will be my father. Let the woman speak.
Another great Tom Mankiewicz story. Evidently, Susanna York plays Laura, had this exact reaction, and he says, Jor-El has this great speech, and he gives Kal-El all of these things. And what does the mother send? The mother sends dick. And Mankiewicz's response is, well, when they're paying you $3 million for 11 days work, then you'll get to get that speech. And it was basically like, no. And they did. They paid Brando $3 million for 2 weeks work. And they were going to get as much out of him as they could in that time.
That's funny. I like to think that he was not wearing pants. I don't think he was in the pantsless stage of his career yet, but I like to think that. I also super love that all the clothing on Krypton glows in the dark.
Yes. They found this very special reflective material that when it's lit from a certain angle, it shows up like it's glowing on film. And really this is before CGI, so all of these effects are practical optical effects. And if you look on the special edition, there's an incredible documentary to see how they were doing some stuff with blue screen, but also like front projection, which is a very long, complicated process that if I tried to explain, I would screw it up. But really kind of revolutionized, the way that they were able to do it, especially with the flying effects. But yeah, that material is insane. And when you see like what that stuff, it was literally just like they were taking this little material and tying it up into balls and like gluing it onto the costume. And it was like, if it got touched by human skin, they had to use gloves and everything. It would lose its reflective quality. Yeah.
That sounds like a stressful thing to wear.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah. And let's um yeah, so that and so Krypton, that's all miniatures. Um and just they wanted to make it seem like this crystal. Um and that um and then going on to Smallville. uh Sarah, are you familiar with Glenn Ford?
Uh, uh, the Western guy?
Yeah,
No.
That's who played Podkent.
Okay. So he was more comfortable on a horse.
Yes, yeah, and Phyllis Thaxter as Ma Kent. Just really as like homespun Norman Rockwell as you can get.
Well,
Um,
it was interesting to me watching in 2020 to look at the age of the vehicles in the Smallville scenes and be like, all right, so 78. So he would be what age? I mean, it just really blew my mind how old everything looked and how
mhm.
less old that would have been in 78. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean it was probably sometime in like the mid 60s, so that means all the cars look like they were bought in the 50s. Yeah, and yeah, and what'd you think of Smallville, seeing Clark, who's played in those scenes by an actor named Jeff East, who's dubbed by Christopher Reeve.
was he dubbed by Christopher Reeve? I didn't realize that. I
Yes.
was very, very, very anxious for Christopher Reeve to come on screen. But he was effectively gawky. It was kind of cool to see, oh, this is where they got Smallville. Like, this is where the TV show came from. They took
Yes.
this 10 minutes and said, we're going to make 13 seasons or whatever.
Yeah. And you see Lana's all there.
The cheerleader outfits were perfect.
Yes, and in the special edition, you do get an extended bit with a very young Lois Lane in the train arguing with her parents.
Yes, that was Lois.
Yes. Who's played, and do you know who played her parents?
No.
So her mother is Noelle Neal, who played Lois Lane in the Superman TV show in the 50s.
Oh, I met her.
Oh, okay. And
at the Metropolis, Illinois Superman Festival about 15 years ago. Anyway, continue.
Oh, and her father was played by Kirk Allen, who played Superman in the serials from the late 40s and early 50s.
So stunt casting past people in current comic incarnations is not new to this decade. Good to know.
No, not at all. And it's the kind of thing, like the fact that they snuck those guys in and they still couldn't give Adam West anything in any of those Tim Burton Batman movies. It's just, come on. But so yeah, it's Smallville. And then you kind of had that like weird like Twilight Zone X-Files moment where he finds the crystal.
Yep.
And then just goes north and builds the Fortress of Solitude. And did you realize,
just levels up?
Yeah.
And gets a journalism degree apparently.
And if you listen to Jor-El as he's explaining them, all that training and the knowledge and everything, he's in there for 12 years.
Yes, that's a long time to be alone. It is no wonder he is immediately charmed by Lois when he gets out.
And that first image of him in the costume where he flies past the camera and just banks, that was the first time that he ever flew on set. And yeah, just that moment. John Williams' score in this is just fantastic.
Is this the best John Williams score, do you think?
For my money, yes. And other people will argue that it's Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but for my money, I think it's Superman.
John Williams is someplace safe right now. We need to protect that man.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Oh, just going through all of this. Okay, let's get to the Daily Planet. Tell me what you thought of Jackie Cooper as Perry White, Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen, and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane.
Honestly, Perry White needed to be meaner. Always. I mean, that newspaper editors should always be meaner. Jimmy Olsen, if Clark had just let Jimmy, in the end, if he just leave Jimmy to his fate, Lois would have been fine. He could have saved. That's all I'm saying. I blame Jimmy. I blame Superman saving Jimmy for having to turn the earth around. But they were a lot of fun. But of course, Margot Kidder is Lois. I love that she's not. She's an interesting looking actress. They didn't cast, what's her name from the Brandon Routh version? Kate Bosworth. They didn't cast a Bosworth. Like, they cast somebody who had character in her face and appearance, and they made her a little aggressive and pushy. And I just love Lois. She is even better than I remembered. Her brass and her toughness and all of it. She's so good. The spoken word poetry in the flight scene is bananas, but she's a delight.
Yes.
Is it any wonder I became a newspaper reporter? Is it any wonder?
Well, now if you look on that DVD I sent you, you will see some screen tests for Lois, and some of the other actresses were Ann Archer and Leslie Ann Warren. But evidently, in the end, the final two, it came down between Margot Kidder and Stockard Channing. Played
Stockard Channing would have been interesting.
Played Rosie in Grease, and between those two, I think I understand Margot Kidder. And I think in retrospect, like, some people don't like her performance, but I think it's the kind of thing where, just like personality wise, I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I think Lois has to be a little challenging like that. I don't think and Stockard Channing, I'm sure, could have done that too, because she is. Mm-hmm. I mean, Stockard Channing is everything. Let's, but yeah, I think not making her easy was fantastic. I super love that the Daily Planet has a helicopter pad. Man, media outlets had a lot of money back then.
Yeah. And well, okay, so Sarah, you've worked in newspapers. How does that the newspaper floor, the Daily Planet, compare?
Pretty good, actually. I know newspaper sets are really hard to dress in Hollywood because media outlets are cluttered, messy. They have a lot of stuff usually. Mm-hmm. And so it can be hard to approximate that if you're on a budget, because it just takes so much effort to dress it up. Right. So yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty accurate. The budget meeting where everybody crams into the office. Yeah. That usually you sit down for that, but okay, we can stand up in the office and I'll shun Clark for asking a question. That's fine. But the typewriters and Lois being like, here's my story, and it's just a sheet of paper. That is outside of my timeline of experience, but it was pretty great.
There's only one P in rapist.
I do love that she can't spell. I also love the Star Reporter. Lois. Yeah. This is now a Lois fan podcast. I'm sorry.
There's no Z in Brazier.
Listen, she's writing the news. She doesn't have time to spell.
Let's move on to the bad guys. Lex Luthor, obviously played by Gene Hackman, but also Valerie Perrine is Eve Tessmacher, and my personal favorite is Ned Beatty as Otis. That scene, as the cops follow him through Grand Central, it's just amazing. And they're the bad guys here, but I mean, is this like one of the greatest comedy teams of the 1970s?
I mean, sure.
And this version of Lex Luthor is very, very different from the depictions of Lex Luthor you get even in the comics today. Um, so, but I feel like it's something, if you were to make a Superman movie now, Lex Luthor would have to be very different. But this was, really much when, before he was the big corporate overlord. And this was when he was still kind of like a mad scientist and really a criminal genius.
I was interested. I didn't realize, I had forgotten the MacGuffin that was the evil plot in this movie, and I didn't realize that it was all about land again. Like I remember that from the Kevin Spacey version. So I like that Lex is just a land baron. That's where money is. Let Otis have Otisville. Let Otis be free.
Otisburg, Casa del X, Lutherville, Marina del X, Otisburg. Otisburg. It's a small place, Mr. Luthor. Otisburg. Miss Tessmacher has her own place. Otisburg. Sorry, Mr. Luthor.
Look, I'm just saying, if Lex had been nicer to his hench people, maybe he would have succeeded. You catch more flies with honey, is what I'm saying.
This is true. My mother lives in Hackensack. Nope. But yeah, and Lex it's something that it's a very, very funny performance. But when it comes time for him to be the villain and twirl his mustache, I still find him just as threatening.
Yeah.
And like, Christopher Reeve, when he opens that box, he is so genuinely afraid of kryptonite and not realizing what it is. To me, that's like one of the most important points in the movie, where that's something that could feel very contrived and silly, and he sells it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I feel like we have not done enough to talk about Christopher Reeve yet, but he is perfect, top to bottom.
Yes,
as Clark and as Superman.
Sarah,
every version in between. Are we saving this for later?
No. I've spoken enough. You should tell us about everything that's great about Christopher Reeve's performance.
Okay. It's everything. Okay, that's all. The physicality when he goes between Clark and Superman, the way he carries himself, his voice, his facial expressions, it is so good. When he is reacting as Superman in his Clark persona, when Lois can't see him and he becomes a different man for a second and then has to revert back. He was so beautiful. He was so perfect. The swagger when he lands on Lois's balcony, Ed. The swagger. Yeah. It's good. He really is the best. I mean, like, he's the best person. He's big, he's strong, he's got this open, friendly face, he's trustworthy, he's all of these things. Was he really 6'4"?
Yes.
Dang.
I hope this incident hasn't put you off flying, Miss Lane. Statistically speaking, it's still the safest way to travel.
It's so good. So it is interesting to me, in all seriousness, that they don't spend a lot of time in this movie on his interior life. That he just sort of, he comes out of the fortress and he is formed. He has these two personas kind of in place, and we don't see a lot of angst over that. And I think that has to be a hallmark of the different times, right? Because the Cavill version is nothing but angst about who he is my memory. I've only seen it once, and I don't need to see it again.
Yes.
And so it's interesting to me that in this, he just is. He just springs fully formed on this city and does his thing. And we see him struggle a little bit, but it is it is in the minute facial expressions and not in these like angsty soliloquies. Yeah, you get some of that when when the scene when that's been gift so much when he starts hearing the voices in the clouds there at the end. Yeah, we get a little bit of that, but it's really interesting to me that he just presents himself for a lot of it as, you know, this is what I'm doing. There is no grappling with, there is no struggle with, how do I be to Lois what I want to be to, he just is.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And that scene on the balcony, dang, Ed, I hadn't watched that as an adult. Those two people need to bone.
I like Pink very much, Lois.
God, that should be rated R. Woo! I will say that was a terrible interview. Also speaking as an adult who has a PhD in mass comm, that is not a great revealing interview, but I get it. If we were, who among us would be any cooler in the face of all that than Lois was? So like, how tall are you? That would probably be my interview too.
To put it delicately, do you eat?
Oh my God. So I feel like I'm on record on this podcast before as loving that, you know, oh, Clark, oh, he's nothing. And I love that tension of, yeah, that's me too. I'm glad that you like me like this, but I'm also him. I love that tension. And they could have played that up a little more, but honestly, why am I going to quibble with this movie? It's delightful.
Yes. And, yeah, and my favorite bit of that is at the very end where like you get this, like he's gonna tell her. He's about to reveal everything. And then she just is so far on cloud nine and not realizing what's happening that she just walks right past him, doesn't notice he's taking his glasses off, doesn't notice that he's suddenly like 3 inches taller. And he
is 3 inches taller because Christopher Reeve knew how to act with his body.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that's Clark. Nice. And he gets chicken, and he doesn't tell her. It's just, well, I'm gonna show you the greatest time, the greatest night of your life. It's like, oh man, if you only knew. And it's like, no, he does know. Oh yeah, but that dynamic is special. And to me, like, you talk about him being unflappable, that's like that moment at the end, and I'm so glad that they actually changed that ending, that they switched it when he pulls her out of the car and realizes that he's too late. That like, that's something that as a kid just like emotionally, like, oh my God, just tears you up.
Well, and I think because he's been so easy in his dual roles, and we haven't seen the struggle or any, I mean, it seems to be sort of effortless for him to switch back and forth. So that moment when he breaks and he just crumbles, I think it makes it even more powerful because we haven't seen anything like that. Also, that Lois's death is horrific. It was really upsetting.
Yeah.
Also upsetting, Jimmy Olsen, king of terrible timing.
Come on, Superman, just leave me out in the middle of the desert.
Read the room, Jimmy.
and then he waits until after Superman leaves and goes, you know, I think he really cares about you.
Yeah, give him 5 more seconds.
Oh, well.
So Miss Tessmacher, look, that kryptonite subway flooded grotto kiss, not consensual, not something we would say is acceptable, but who among us wouldn't be tempted is all I'm saying. Like, obviously. Yeah. Superman was not in a position to give consent, but like, I get it, Eve. I get it. I get it, Miss Tessmacher.
Yeah.
And actually, Jason had wandered out of the room and said, "You call me back for that water scene," because apparently he had memories of her white dress in the water. So it was interesting to watch it with somebody who also had seen it a lot as a kid, but was a boy, and the things he remembered. So, yeah, he had fond memories of Miss Tessmacher, weirdly.
I mean, yeah.
I also feel like at one point she was wearing a Power Girl boob window outfit.
Yes. Yeah. She's a very, like,
I'm sure that was not an homage intentionally, but I was like, yeah.
Well,
nice nod to Power Girl.
yeah. I mean, and then there's that one scene where she's in like the red dress, Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
When the one what's his name played the Ewing from Dallas plays the sergeant. He's like about face.
Yeah, that was
Larry Hagman.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. But she did look spectacular in that dress.
Yes. Larry Hagman played the major.
Yes.
Sorry, you got to give her mouth to mouth. Wait, no, I wouldn't ask anyone to do something I wouldn't be.
Oh, you forgot the chest compressions.
All right, men, gather round. About face. Yeah. So
if I wanted to get all feminist scholar on it, I did think it was really interesting in the beginning when they were sentencing the Zod Ursula, and who's the other one who I always forget?
Non,
the fancy bread. But Ursula, I thought it was interesting that she was sentenced for perversion and not caring for the welfare of Krypton's children. And I was like, oh, I see your gender coding there. I see what you're doing. I don't see you talking about the men endangering children, just the woman. I see you. But so, yeah, this was clearly a movie of the 70s, but Lois is so great and such a fully realized character and so unapologetically weird and ambitious and flawed that I let a lot of that go because it's so great to see. That would be a fantastic role today. I mean, it's the kind of thing that I think women would be lucky to have a role like that today.
Yeah.
We need more Lois Lanes. The world needs more Lois Lanes. Also, in the very last scene, I swear to you, Christopher Reeve had a cute little sunburn on his nose. I feel like he'd been filming outside all day and he had been wearing sunglasses and he was sunburned and it was just like, ah. And then I got really sad because Christopher Reeve isn't with us anymore.
Yeah.
And he really was majestic.
Yes.
In other news, did ambulances really look like that back then, or was that just a really obviously fake ambulance? I need to know.
I always assume like because I even think like nurses having those weird hats and the costumes and everything. I feel like that probably didn't change until like the mid 80s. But
I just needed to know, did he steal a van and just paint ambulance on it and think people would be too stupid to notice, or was that just what ambulances were? I don't know.
I don't know. I just know when they pretend to be hillbillies to stop that one thing on the bridge.
Oh my God. And Miss Tessmacher scaling that bridge. Oh, she's tough.
Yeah. So let's talk big takeaways. I mean, we talk about this movie's earnestness. Sarah, could you tell me why is Warner Brothers not using this as a model for all of the stuff that it's putting out today?
Because it lost its way. I genuinely don't know, because it thought that we were too cynical a society to respond to that level of just open optimism. I think.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're gonna see this with Superman and Lois. I feel like the Tyler Hoechlin version of Superman is so much more in line with this version. No?
Yeah,
do you feel similarly?
I agree, and I hope that's the case.
Oh, I hope so too. If I don't want them to turn it into a dark Arrow show. That tone is fantastic for the right show, but I would love to see a Lois and Clark kind of bright, boppy, sunny, optimistic, positive Superman and Lois incarnation. I think we need that.
Mhm.
We need that cheer. I also was reminded more than ever what spot on casting Brandon Routh is. You knew it was going to happen. You knew I was going to bring up Brandon Routh. You knew. But the physicality and the way he played that, again, I'll say he was a really good Superman in a really bad movie. But you can see that, and I wonder if that's part of it too. If the way that movie flopped so hard made Warner Brothers say, "Oh, well, we should try something different. Let's go 180 degrees and make it depressing."
Yeah.
More neck snapping. We need more neck snapping in our Superman movie. I'm so sorry. I'm still angry about it.
Oh, yeah. And is there anything from this movie that you've seen reflected in Supergirl over the last few seasons?
Well, certainly I've seen they do homages to entire scenes. You know, when Superman goes through that gauntlet of fire and ice and all that, getting into Lex's lair, and I think I passed out. So I mean, you've seen those little moments that have come up, but I think Supergirl is definitely a spiritual successor in terms of the goodness and the cheer and the determination to be better and make the world better by being better. Yeah, I think I'm glad Supergirl has missed the darkness of the movies. I don't know. Do you see similar things? Am I missing anything there?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I was just, I'm just trying to think of like different homages that have come, and I can't see anything. I can't name anything specific right now, but definitely in terms of tone. And such.
She's done the spin around and drill down thing. I feel I'm cheating a little bit because, of course, when I recap Supergirl, I always miss these things, and somebody in the comments is like, "Well, I can't believe the recapper didn't mention the." All right.
Yeah. Also, that
the recapper was on a deadline.
Also, that gauntlet sequence where he's walking past the machine guns and the flamethrowers, and that's not in the theatrical version.
Really?
In the theatrical version, he goes down into the sewer and then just immediately knocks down the door with Otis goes, "He's definitely coming, Mr. Luthor."
Why on earth would that be the version DC Universe has streaming?
I don't know. Because I guess they want to still keep all three versions of it alive, which makes no sense. But yeah, that was something that was thought lost, and then it resurfaced in TV versions in like the early 90s, I think. But yeah, I guess just for time or something, they figured, well, there's no real story reason to have him go through these things other than the fact that it looks really, really cool.
I think looks really, really cool should be a good enough story reason.
Yeah, and also kind of like it's the best establishment of his powers and showing off his invulnerabilities. But whatever. Seeing him get frozen then blasting through, I always think that looks really cool.
Yep. He's not going to be stopped so easily, friends.
Yeah. We've been going for like 45 minutes on this. Wow.
Yeah, I just checked our time. We really got into that.
Yeah. So I think is it time to say our winners for the week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to?
So I've seen this one movie so many times, and to me on this rewatch, the thing that really stuck out to me that I love is Ned Beatty as Otis. I just think Otis is a perfect character that exists in this movie, and I think that if you made this movie today, you would be afraid to have a character that stupid. Oh
my god. That's such a great way to put it.
And I just Ned Beatty just has me in stitches every moment. Just like when Hackman's like, "Otis, take the man's cape." He just goes,
I don't think he wants me to do that, Mr. Luthor.
Yes. Just his face, and even just everything about him. When they're dressed up as hillbillies, and then you see he has the black eye, and you realize that that's not makeup. Lex getting out of the pool, and Otis bringing him the bathrobe, but when he's still like a foot underwater. Oh, just everything about just Ned Beatty is fearless as that character. And
it does make the Supergirl version of Otis even weirder.
yes, yeah. I mean, it's in Supergirl, it's fine, but he's pretty much just another goon, and realize like, oh no, there's so much more Otis could have been. Ned Beatty still alive. Love to see him tackle this role again. But
I mean, Superman and Lois could do that, so they should consider it. Yes.
All right.
Well, of course, my winner is Christopher Reeve, but for me, it's the heartbreaking perfection of it, because watching it now, we know what life is going to be for Christopher Reeve, and we know that this vibrant, physical, perfect man is going to have trials and a shorter life than he should have had. And so I think there's something really bittersweet to watch it now and see he was so superior in every way, and still to have the ending that he did, but to face it the way he did with bravery and grace and compassion and all that. I mean, it's just, I think Christopher Reeve is an inspiring person, and to watch him in, I think, the very best thing that he ever did is such a gift. What a gift Christopher Reeve is. So that's my winner of the week.
All right. And and so now it's time for us to talk about our retro pick for next week.
Yes.
So we scoured, we had some tweets, some people suggest different things. At Deke273 wanted us to do a deep dive of the old Swamp Thing movies and series on DC TV Report. At Bowerfett also suggested the Aquaman pilot. That's live action. And so what we decided, we're going to go with Swamp Thing. But not the first Swamp Thing movie. We're going to watch The Return of Swamp Thing from 1989, starring Heather Locklear.
Good grief.
And this is available on Amazon Prime. It's for free if you're subscribed to Amazon Prime. You can also find streaming versions of it on Hulu. I'm sorry, not Hulu, on Vudu free, and Popcorn Flex, which is another streaming service. Both of those, you have to watch it with ads, but it's there.
And seriously, what else are you doing these days? You got time.
Yeah. But if you have Amazon,
and what is Popcorn Flicks?
I don't know. It's a streaming service. It's one of like the 12,000. Right. You could probably find it somewhere hidden deep in the bowels of your Roku. But yeah, The Return of Swamp Thing, which I don't know if I've ever seen all the way through. So
that's not good.
I rewatched the original Swamp Thing that was directed by Wes Craven with Bill Sweeney a couple of years ago. And this one is meant to be a little bit more campy. So I'm excited to check it out. And hey, 1989, Heather Locklear, come on, what more could you want?
True.
So The Return of Swamp Thing. So come join us next week and check that out. We won't have any new episodes, but there will certainly be news. And yeah, Sarah, that's it for the episode.
We did a long podcast.
Yes, we did. So yeah, that's the DC TV report for this week. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Little Eddie O'Hare.
I'm at Sara Netzley, SaraNetzley.
Send along your emails to dctv@wickedtheory.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our show on your podcast app of choice and rate and review us. That helps more people find us. Check out our sister show, The Wicked Theory Podcast. This has been a Wicked Theory Studios production. Executive producer, Bill Sweeney. Visit us at wickedtheory.com. Shazam, everybody.
Shazam.
Shazam.